were talking.
Yes.
We were talking about the Bodo problem, which came to notice as I was leaving Calcutta for Delhi to take over as the army chief. Anyway, I came to Delhi on the 29th of May, and General Sundarji and his wife were leaving on the 30th, since that was his tenure. And I saw them off at the Palam airport, wished them well. They had gone to South India. And then I came back to Army headquarters, where there was a guard of honor laid on for me. Now, I was honorary colonel of 2 regiments. That's the 66th Armored Regiment, which I had commanded, and also to the 87th Armored Regiment, who had requested me to become the honorary colonel when I was commanding 1 corps, and they were under my command at that time. And I had accepted that. So both the regiments requested my permission to provide a guard of honor.
Okay.
So I said to them, fine, both of you can come. So both regiments laid on a guard of honor, lined up outside the entrance to South Block. And there's a huge civilian crowd to see what the new chief looked like.
Okay.
And a lot of press, ladies, gentlemen were permitted, and various officers, senior officers of the army headquarters had arrived there with their wives, and I was to be introduced to some of the lieutenant generals. There were lieutenant generals and major generals of the army headquarters, so they were also there with their wives. And the major general in charge of ceremonials, who was in charge of all this, was a chap called Major General Y.K. Yadav from the gunners, from the artillery. And he was a very good friend of mine because he was from RIMC, my old school. And every time we went to RIMC, we used to get together, my wife, myself, him, and other friends. The large number of Rimpolians in the army headquarters were very thrilled that one of their group had become the army chief. Secondly, I think there was a lot of welcome from North India, because mostly the chiefs have been from Central or South India.
Right.
You see, and Sundarji was from the South, and before them, Vaidya was Maharashtra.
Right.
You see, Krishna Rao was from the South. There were 3 or 4 before me. And so earlier there was General Sinha, who was from Bihar. So people from Punjab and UP were quite thrilled that one of the brothers, shall I call him, had become the army. So they got a lot of welcome from everybody. I took the guard of honor, very smart parade indeed. And a lot of photographs were taken by everybody. Then these lieutenant generals were all lined up. Some of them were disgruntled because they had expected to become higher in rank, but they had become, left out. The army had introduced a system, because a large number of lieutenant generals, that there was a staff stream and a command stream. Now, this means that if you are considered fit to command a corps, then you are given a corps to command, but the corps are not enough for the large number of lieutenant generals that are required in the military. We are a very large force. And therefore, they do not get the opportunity to go further in life. They can come on staff. That's the staff stream. They come to army headquarters, or they become chiefs of staff of various formations. Those who command corps, having commanded successfully, if they were considered fit and the vacancy was there, then they became army commanders. See? So now that we've got only 6 or 7 army commanders in the Indian Army, and so the very narrow pinnacle of advancement, if I might say. Some people are disgruntled because they think themselves superior and were not given the command stream, but given the corps stream, the staff stream. So many of them, as I was meeting them, told me that we are very upset about what's happened to us. I said, that's your mental attitude. Please correct it. Because whatever you are, that's what you're going to be. Chair, I met these gentlemen. Then I went to my office and a whole lot of press was standing over there asking me what is my plans for the military. So I said, look here, I've just come here. And as we go along, the plans will mature. But I'm not one of those who sort of make plans to change things from the army which my predecessor had left. I said every chief has contributed to the advancement of the military, and my predecessor has done the same. And so I go along with that. And my principle is that when you take over an organization, for the first 4 to 6 months, you don't change anything because that is what your predecessor has arranged. And you can't sort of have the egotistical attitude that you know more than everybody else, and therefore you are a new, clean brush to sort of brush the place up and make it spiky clean, which it was not so earlier. I don't believe in that because anybody who reaches high rank has been competent enough to be selected by the government to reach that high rank in the first place, and secondly, has contributed to the betterment of the force. And so therefore I said, don't expect me to say how I'm going to change things or run things. I know nothing about it. I'm going to learn the job. It will take me some months to learn the job. And after I've learned the job and assessed what is to be required, I'll make gentle changes without too much noise about it. So that was it. So I didn't give the press very much. They said, General, you haven't given us anything to write. So I said, look, you can write what you like. My job is not here to give you spicy stuff to write in the newspapers. My job is to get on with the business of commanding this army. We have a few threats on our borders, and we've got some insurgencies, and I've got to get on with that. Anyway, now the next day we had to call on the prime minister. So I did that. And he had two concerns. He told me, General, there are two concerns. Firstly, he says, your predecessor has suggested that our troops in the Siachen Glacier area are in a very bad way. Their morale is down, and we should consider withdrawing them someday. So then I asked the Prime Minister, but if we withdraw from Siachen, what do the Pakistanis do? They occupy the place. That's our territory. So he says, no, but your predecessor did say that he had sent his DGMO to the Lieutenant General B.C. Joshi, who later became the army chief. But anyway, he says your Lieutenant General B.C. Joshi apparently visited there. And therefore, his report was that people's morale is a bit down. And we might consider politically to settle issues on the Siachen Glacier and allow the army to withdraw because it's a terrible life over there. So I said, no, I don't quite agree with this. But before I say anything more, I'll go and visit Siachen and see for myself as to what the morale of the people is like. Then I'll come back and report to you. He said, all right, that's fine. Second problem that he was facing is that Mr. Deng Xiaoping of China had invited him on a number of occasions earlier to visit Beijing. And Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, who was the Prime Minister, he said, General, what do you think about this? I said, what advice have you received from the Foreign Ministry? Because they're in charge of this business, not me. He said, no, the Foreign Ministry says that it will be a disastrous thing to visit China because we've had a tussle with them in Eastern Army. You know, when I was there, we had that Sumrodong Chu incident, which I've spoken about earlier, 1986, 87. And he says the Chinese, Foreign Ministry's advice was that the Chinese are really upset about all this, that the Indians have sort of shown their teeth, as one might say, which is not appreciated. And therefore, if the Prime Minister visits China, there would be, he might be, not treated well, or he may be not given the type of respect that is due to a Prime Minister of our country. So they are saying that he should not go. I said, what do you think? So I said, I'll give you straight away my opinion on this subject. I don't believe a word of it, that they shall not receive you well. They have invited you, and the president himself is the boss of Prime Minister China. Deng Xiaoping is basically a very good man. He has done a lot for China. And yes, we have some tussles on the border, so what? But I said that China considers themselves, I know a lot about China. When I was a lieutenant colonel, as I've told you earlier, I was in the instructor in our staff college, 19 in the 1960s, and I had been in charge of the China study. So if I was in charge of the China study group, I would read Mao Zedong's red book and things like that, and I studied the system. And yes, every leader that comes there has a different attitude to everybody. But Deng Xiaoping, who had taken over, Deng Xiaoping had been removed from power by Mao Zedong because he says he's a capitalist roader. He's more capitalist than communist. And Deng Xiaoping had for some 10, 15 years been under a shadow. But then when Mao died and the Gang of Four took over after that and created a lot of nonsense in China, and after the Gang of Four and Mao's, say, Tung's wife passed away, God is great, everybody eventually passes away. So then Deng Xiaoping took over, and he's the man who built the economy of China by creating a system where private industry was permitted, especially on the eastern seaboard, like Shanghai, for instance, and Beijing, Tianjin Tango, a lot of industries, and he permitted these people to earn private money, provided they pay their taxes. Because the Chinese economy had come up. And I said, he's a very interesting man. In fact, it would be very advantageous for India if you, as the Prime Minister, go there, because we want to learn some things from China, the way they have controlled certain issues. They've got a very large population, just like us. Not easy to function in a country which has large poverty-stricken groups, large percentage, and you have to feed them, and you have to clothe them, and you have to house them. So I said, it will be very interesting for you to go, and I suggest you go. Don't worry about what happened in Northeast India when I was there. Very little incident. These are minor incidents. They take place. It's an open border. As far as you're concerned, I think a signal contribution to good relations, which is essential. We don't want to go to war with China. We want to have good relations. So I suggest you cut out the foreign ministry's opinion and you go. And I'm very happy to say he took my advice and eventually went. Of course, he went a bit later, but just to complete that part of the story, I don't know how old you must have been at that time. I'm talking of 1988. And so you may not have been very keen on what's going on. But 1988, you would recollect that when Rajiv Gandhi went to Beijing, he was such a plum and ceremony.
I was quite keen because I was journalist by then, 1988. So I was quite old.
Yeah. Okay. You look very young, so
thank you.
So Deng Xiaoping took his hand and our TV showed for 3 minutes. He wouldn't leave Rajiv Gandhi's hand. Now, Rajiv is a tall chap. He's about 5'11". And Deng Xiaoping is probably shorter than me also. So looking up at him and shaking his hand for almost 3 minutes. He's so happy that the Indian Prime Minister came to visit him. And I must say that immediately there was an improvement in relations with China. Right. That's part of it. Now, the second part of it was that since he had raised some issues about Siachen Glacier, I decided to visit Siachen Glacier within 3 days of my arrival. So I arrived at Leh Airfield in a fixed-wing aircraft. I took a helicopter from there, and we flew to Siachen Glacier. And I had wanted to visit Villafranca. Now, Villafranca is on the border of the Saltoro Ridge line, which is south or southwest, I would say, of the Siachen Glacier. Siachen Glacier is basically a frozen river. A frozen river is in the, it's in a valley. You have high mountains on both sides. And on the Pakistani border side, we've got the Saltoro Ridge. It's the Siachen Glacier, where one of our posts is there at about 18,000 feet. The passes on the ridge line to southwest of it, which is bearing on the North Pakistan, the um, Gilgit and Skardu and all that area of Pakistan, northern gullies as they call it. That height goes up to 24,000 feet, and there are two main passes there. One pass is the Bilafonla Pass, which is at about 19,500 feet. And further northwest is the Sierra Pass, which is about 21,000 feet. Both are occupied by our troops. And these are the only two passes through which you can enter the Siachen Glacier from the Pakistan side. And these are the ones that we were holding. Now, I wanted to visit Bilafonla. Now, we went to our Kamar post. Kamar post is, the famous Bill Kumar of 4 Command. That's my brother's regiment, my Somnath Sharma's battalion. Bill Kumar was our famous mountaineer. I've told you a few stories about him. He had no toes, for instance, and he used to give lectures on mountaineering in Sikkim when I was commanding the division over there as a major general. And he had come there for a talk on my invitation, and he spoke to all local citizens and the military and foreigners who were there on tourism. And he told us about his assault on Kinchenjunga. So now Bull Kamar is the man who had been tasked in 1984 or thereabout to take up expedition on Siachen Glacier to see how far it goes and to occupy it. And he did that. He went up to about 21,000 feet on the northwestern end of Siachen Glacier. And then in the center of Siachen Glacier, we created a post. It was called the Kamar Post after him. His name is Bull Kamar. So that's the Kamar Post, is about 18,000 feet. We flew over this, and then there's a glacier which goes up to the Saltoro Ridge line on the southwest, leading to Bilafonla. So I told the pilot, I said, now you go up to Bilafonla. He said, sir, I've been ordered not to take you anywhere near the Bilafonla Pass. Now, he was the lieutenant colonel of the gunners. So I said, why? Who told you that order? He said, I have been given these instructions from the general officer commanding of Northern Command and the local division commander that the safety of the army chief is very important. And since Pakistanis, when they hear a helicopter coming near Bilafonla, they start firing mortar ammunition. The mortars are different to normal artillery guns. Mortars fire a round which goes straight up into the sky and then crosses the mountain range and drops on the enemy side, right? So I said, that shouldn't bother us. He said, sir, but those are my orders. I said, those orders are hereby removed. And you're now getting orders from the army chief, you will go and land on Bilafonla Pass. So he was very worried, this lieutenant colonel from the gunners. He was flying his aircraft at about 20,000 feet. And he showed me on the glacier where Bilafonla Pass was. I of course recognized it. I had been there earlier when I was in MO Directorate as a Major General. And he said, you see, that is where the pass is. And short of that pass is a snow helipad on which we can land. You'll see those black spots appearing around that area. So yes, sure enough, there's black spots appearing on that on the snow. He said those are the artillery, or rather the mortar shells, because Pakistan has heard our helicopters, and they've already started firing their 4.2-inch mortars. You see, and so the mortar shells are landing there, creating a small explosion, and then those are the black spots coming on the snow. So I told him, I said, Colonel, have you ever read in any history that an artillery shell knocked out a helicopter? Not once in any war has a helicopter been hit by an artillery. So I said, come on, we don't have to bother about that. You go up to Kamar Post and then hug the earth, fly about 300 feet above the glacier connecting Kamar Post to Bilafonla Pass. I said, let's fly up that. And we did exactly that. And so we land on the helipad. And we did that. So when I landed, the general officer of that division, 3rd Division, was also present to receive me. And we went on to the helipad. And they had been told that I will not visit them. Why? Because the army commander there had ordered that my helicopter should not be permitted to land there. So they were not ready for me. Nonetheless, on the helipad, they had some small artillery guns, and there was a section of artillery over there. Plus, there was a little guard of the on the helipad. So I said, "Down, ring up the commanding officer of this battalion," and he said he's up on the Bellafont La Pass itself. I said, "Tell him I'm here. Let him come down and have a chat with me. Meanwhile, you guys come along and talk to me." So they all collected, and I saw on the side of the helipad uh, a stove with a kettle of water on top. So I said, "What is you making there?" He said, "We're making tea." So I said, "Well, let's have a cup of tea." He said, "Sir, the flame has been on for the last 10 minutes. It will take another 10, 15 minutes before it starts boiling. Because high altitude, takes time to boil. You have to have things under pressure before they can boil. Of course, we've changed all that now. I'm talking of, as I said, 1988, first few days of June. So I said, it doesn't matter. If it's tepid and not cold, put chai patti and sugar and milk and let's have it. So we had it tepid tea, all of us. Then I said, look here, you fellows, I'm told that you are fed up of this place and you want to go away. So they were very surprised. They asked me, who told you that? So I said, Director of Military Operations, General B.C. Joshi had apparently come here and gave a report to the chief that your chaps' morale is low and you've had enough. So there was a Havaldar standing there. He said, sir, just a minute. If we go away, will the Pakistanis on the other side of this pass also go away? I said, no, they won't go away. He said, then they'll occupy this pass and we will never be able to capture this pass again. So whoever captures the pass has got dominating ground and you cannot take it. It's very well defended. And they've had a series of attacks here and we repulsed all of the attacks. So if we leave and they occupy the pass, then India has lost this position altogether. I said, you're right. But if your morale is low, the Prime Minister says he'll politically make up the mind to withdraw you and come to some deal with Pakistan. They said, well, sir, if the problem is that you can't feed us here or that you are finding it difficult to maintain us here, don't worry. You only thing that is difficult is ammunition. As far as food is concerned, we'll take our patrols down to Kumar Post and pick up food and bring it up. As far as water is concerned, we will melt the ice and drink the water. But if the ammunition, which is heavy load, is a problem, you bring your helicopters up to Kumar Post, which is 18,000 feet, drop the ammunition there, we'll send patrols and pick it up and bring it. Otherwise, we are not prepared to move out of here till the Pakistanis move out of here. And our morale is perfectly fine, not to bother about us. So I said, then how did General Joshi report this? They said, well, we never heard any General Joshi come here. He must have come somewhere else. I mean, he hasn't come anywhere near this place. I said, all right, thank you very much. Meanwhile, the commanding officer landed up and confirmed that they were not bothered about this place at all, as long as the ammunition supply continues. That's no problem. We were doing that. So I came back from there and I landed up in the Kumar Post to meet those people over there. I talked to them, all very high morale. I said, did the Director General Military Operations arrive here? He said, no, sir, nobody's come here. You're the first chap after a number of months. I said, all right, thank you very much. Then I went back to the base of the glacier's base is where the snow river converts to moraines and mud and slush. And the Nurba River starts from its base, which flows down in a southeasterly direction and joins the Shok River. This is beautiful geography, by the way. Unless you have a map and pour over it, you won't understand what I'm saying. But the Nubra River starts from the base, and we've got a base camp. Now, the height over there would be maybe about 16,000 feet. That's all, 15,500 or 16,000 feet. When I landed there, they gave me a very good reception, a large number of people. The snow has ended, and, plain ground is there. There's a memorial over there. We've got these heavy Bofor guns over there, and they gave me a very good a cup of tea and some snacks to go with it. And I said, did General Joshi arrive here and meet you? They said, yes, sir, he came here. I said, did you guys say that you're rather fed up? He said, sir, we are very fed up. I said, why are you fed up? So far away from the front line. They said, it's so boring of you. Either take us away from here or let us go to the front and do our duties there. I said, no, we have got to have a base camp from where all the supplies are collected, ammunition is collected, and then patrols on their backs or by helicopter, we send these things forward to this area. So I found that there was nothing much in the story. And when I went back, I met the Prime Minister and I told him, I said, forget it. We are not going to withdraw from the Siachen Glacier. It's a very important occupation since 1984. And I'm the last person to say that we should withdraw from that. It's our territory. And the Pakistanis withdraw from their side. And there is a deal with the Pakistan on a permanency of that border. We don't go away from this position. So he's very happy to hear that. Then I visited the Military Operations Directorate, where General Joshi was present and all his staff. And I asked him to brief me on this subject. I said, why did they say that they should withdraw? And they insisted, yes, this is our report, that people are fed up and so on and so forth. So I said, look, you guys have to change your views. I'll give you 2 days to change your views on this subject. There was a whole lot of you from the general down to the full colonel, who is the junior most officer there. Send you all back to your units, and I'll replace every one of you with some people who have got a little more aggressive frame of mind. So we sorted that out. That was the problem of people sitting on their backsides in Delhi comfortably with air-conditioned offices, who feel that it's very dangerous to go there or it's very difficult to live there, and give all sorts of advice. Those of us who are on the borders, maybe that's what I'm trying to convey, have got very high morale. But as you go further and further back, perhaps the morale goes down a bit. Why? Because they are bored stiff. Or that's it. But in all sorts of conflict and the management of borders in every country, boredom is part of life. I mean, the action takes place for a few days, very exciting. The rest of the time, you're twiddling your toes and trying to make your life as comfortable as possible, despite the horrible weather that they face in the northern border. So there's not to worry about that. Now, another problem faced me straight away within a few days was the problem of Nepal. Now, in Nepal, you know, I don't know. I think as far as our foreign ministry is concerned in those days, I hope it's changed now. There's a sort of a love-hate relationship. Now, the basis of this love-hate relationship is that Nepal is an independent country. And it's got two monsters on its borders. In the north, they've got the Chinese monster, and in the south, they've got the Indian monster. The same as Bhutan. Now, what do you expect them to think? They've got to play toe-to-toe with both sides. Otherwise, it's a difficult life for them. So I could understand, both with the king of Bhutan and with the king and the Peshwas, and then later the bureaucracy that controls, or rather the politics that controls Nepal, this problem of two monsters on either side. Now, Nepal is a landlocked country. It has to have trade. It can only trade southwards or northwards because it has to have seaports to import stuff from what it wants, and it has to have seaports to export whatever they want to export. So far, they're doing it from Calcutta. And China is coming in there in a friendly attitude as far as their diplomacy is concerned. To say, we'll give you everything, we'll make roads for you, we'll make railway lines for you and all that. So for a poor country like Nepal, I mean, that's a bonanza, because if you're going to make railway lines and roads for them with your own expenditure, so what's wrong with accepting that? Secondly, at that time, Nepal had asked India, now, according to the treaty, which goes back to the 1950s, with King Tribhuvan of that time. Now, there are no more kings there. And Jawaharlal Nehru, the treaty was that whatever military support or ammunition or weapons or equipment or military organizations assistance will be given by India. So the whole army was provided by us, plus we do a lot of training for them. Their officers, their men, everybody are trained in India. And now Chinese probably asked for anti-aircraft guns. And on the Indian side, apparently, now I'm not very clear of what I'm saying because this is done between the foreign ministry and Nepal. But I surmise that there was a demand for anti-aircraft guns, and the foreign ministry bureaucrats or diplomats or whoever they are asked for a consultation to the Ministry of Defense. And so Ministry of Defense asked Army headquarters, and the military operations apparently sent some letter to them to say there's no problem, give it to them. The Defense Ministry are bureaucrats who, without seeing what the Ministry of the Army had said, just because the bureaucrats are net between every department of government. Some diplomat must have spoken to the to the defense secretary, etc., etc. So the answer that came here was a very non-committal answer that you please go ahead and do whatever is right. So when I arrived there, I found that there was a certain order coming out from the foreign ministry for Ministry of Defense, as agreed to by the Prime Minister, that all borders of Nepal have to be blocked. Now there are 9 entry points from India to Nepal for Gurkha troops who go there to meet their families or go on leave or whatever it is. Out of these 9, they said only one will be kept open. That is the one on the UP border. And the rest, and we checked what all stuff you are taking. Plus the government ordered that no kerosene and no petrol and no, stuff of that nature would be sent to Nepal. With result, all the vehicles and, kerosene is required for home fires, for cooking and things like that. So people started cutting trees to cook their food. So kerosene and, LPG gas and things were stopped from India. And as a result, Nepal was under pressure to obey whatever government ordered. So I found out from S.K. Singh, who was then the foreign secretary. I said, what's the problem here? Why are you doing that? He said, why they're trying to threaten us. I said, in what way are they threatening us? They asked for anti-aircraft. I said, so what? He said, the anti-aircraft guns is only for the protection of Kathmandu airport. That means that if something goes wrong and Indian fighter bombers come there, they're able to defend themselves. I said, firstly, Indian fighter bombers are not going to be deterred by the few 5 or 6 anti-aircraft guns that Nepal is asking for. It makes no difference to us. And they've got an army. They've got every right to have every type of weapon that is available for their protection, whether it's against India or against China or against anyone else for that. I said, give it to them. What's the problem? He said, no, they are bribing, they are threatening us by saying that they want 10,000 crores or something as a gift, 12,000 crores or something. I said, what's 12,000 crores for the government of India? Give it. They said, they are demanding this money. Why should we give them money? I said, look, they're friends. Give it. What do you have? Then I told them that when I was Eastern Army commander, I found that in Manipur state, there's a man called Rishabh K. Singh who became the chief minister. And since he was the Eastern commander, to check all the politics of all these states very, very carefully, because that's where conflict arises, and that's where the army has to come. See? So I had my intelligence group telling me exactly what's going on there, and I said that Rishabh K. Singh was losing his majority as chief minister in Manipur. So he wanted 2 or 3 of the opposition MLAs to vote for him rather than for their own opposition party, for which they demanded 10,000 crores each, which he paid. I said, therefore, the value of money, 10,000 crores or 12,000 crores, is just the bribery money that one small little state chief minister is giving to his MLAs to vote for him. So why are you worried about giving that much to Nepal? So as he's saying, hum and hod, I mean, we can't be, holier than thou sort of business. It's a small country, and if you want some help, just give it. Give a donation. What's the problem? So he didn't agree with me. Then I found that our then ambassador in Nepal had sent a report to foreign ministry that the Nepalis are getting more close to the Chinese than to the Indians, in as much as he had wanted to see the king or some boss there, and he was denied that permission because he was a Bolshevik chap. So he wrote all sorts of nasty reports about Nepal, and the foreign ministry acted. So I told Mr. Narasimha Rao, who was then the Foreign Affairs Minister of External Affairs, I said, Mr. Narasimha Rao, please smile at Nepal. Don't be angry. Even if they act a little Bolshevik, it's a little younger brother, shall I say, of India. You've got to deal with it. You don't have to get excited about it. And don't get so frightened of him having good relations with China. He's got every authority to do so because that monster is on his north and he has to keep that monster at bay just like he has to keep us at bay. Anyway, they didn't listen to me and they said, but General, these are the orders. So I went back and I called up the military operations director. I said, what advice did you give to the Ministry of Defense on this issue of Nepal? So they were rather surprised. They brought up 2-page letter where they had said exactly what I've said this. That as far as the Indian Army is concerned, Nepal is a great friend, and whatever they want, give it. If they want some anti-aircraft guns, give it. If they want money, give it. This is the answer that the army had put. Then I checked up with Ministry of Defense that when you had this letter from the army, why is it you did not pass that on to the foreign ministry? So the foreign ministry told me that your defense ministry has said, okay, what we are doing. So what are you getting argumentative about? So just want to show you the idiocy that takes place in a huge headquarters with the bureaucracy and files and things and the buddy system. What idiocy, what idiotic decisions can be made despite all the brains that we've got. So you need to look at everything with tongue in cheek and a little bit of humor and tell people not to get so excited about these minor things in life. Anyway, I told the defense secretary, who was then, I said, look, he was a very nice man. I said, you did not take any notice of what the army told you. And you, whatever the defense minister put one or two words, they okay or something like that. And we just said that the foreign ministry took no advantage of the result. You created an international incident. I said, that means that in future, I have no trust in the Ministry of Defense and you just better wake up. Otherwise, all the letters that the government of India wants to know from various ministries, including Ministry of External Affairs, we shall send our copies of our letters directly to them. Because if we send it to you, you just put it in a locker and don't take any notice of it. This is not the bureaucracy which is supposed to give the opinion of the military. The military has to give its own opinion. That's it. You will see this some sort of a dichotomy between the tendency and the military.